Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Well, welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by a lovely chap called Darragh Power. Darragh and I met for the first time 3 or 4 days ago, and I thought, wow, we definitely need to have a conversation. So here is Darragh. He's a senior director at SAP. He's a part-time lecturer at University of Dublin, and he's a lifelong learner. He's just a hoover of anything exciting, and creates wonderful things called sketch notes, which I've been captivated for a number of months on now, where he just sort of has conversations with people, scribbles them down, and sticks them out in the world. And it was that sort of inquisitiveness in our call on Friday that I just thought, wow, we need to have a chat. So here we are. Darragh, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Well, that's a very generous introduction, Dave. And in kind of one of the reasons that I got in touch with you is because I enjoyed the podcasts that you do, and I also really got the service intention that you wish to help people, and that came through in the work with veterans. That's how I first kind of came across. And I think that this intention to serve or to help is a great reason to be curious and inquisitive. If you're curious and inquisitive because you're trying to make sense of a world gone mad, I'd say that was probably characterized my experience for a lot of my life. But then the finding out of stuff that's helpful and the seeing it for yourself and then the sharing of that is a whole other level of inquisitiveness. So there's kind of like because you're learning, but you can see not so much even an application, but an opportunity to connect, to share, to have fun with people, and there's a real magic in that.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit two of my favorite things there: service and fun. There's a huge amount that we can all offer each other just by being ourselves and knowing that that's enough. Or even not knowing that's enough, but just knowing that's all we've got, actually, and that's all we can offer up. And let's go with that. Let's see where that takes us, and having fun with it in the process. There's a school of thought that says service is a sort of earnest thing that we need to think really long and hard about this and do this the right way. Well, yeah, obviously, but actually, why not have fun with it in the process? Because even when life feels really, really tough, we can normally have a bit of a laugh, see some humour in something, even if it's how rubbish things actually are. By being there with someone else, we have an opportunity to lift each other's spirits and see where that takes us. And that's that curiosity business bubbling to the surface. When we're on our own, consumed by our what seem like very weighty thoughts at times, just sharing a moment with someone, even if it's a smile or a glance, there's an opportunity to burst that bubble slightly and see something different.
And it's, an observation, because I coach people a lot, and when people are really weighty and really going, what's the meaning of life? Like, what's my purpose here and all that kind of thing? It's usually they're in a me bubble. Is that a lot of thinking about themselves. And when people are having fun, or they're playing music, they're hanging out with their kids, they're going for a run, they don't really think about what's the meaning of life or what's my purpose. It's like, and Alan Watts said, like, the meaning of life, it's to live. Like,
Yeah.
why make it any more complicated than that? But and we have an amazing ability to create complication. And with the feeling of complicated thinking is often a feeling of weight and responsibility and duty and all that kind of thing. But like I love what you said, to lift people's spirits. You know, like there's a guy who works in Miami airport and he cleans the toilets and I think he's Cuban. You know, so I walked in and he's got this beautiful mellifluous singing voice,
Uh-huh.
and he's just singing to himself and whistling. And I was just kind of marveling that like anybody who walks in there is going to have a smile on their face
Yeah.
just because of and he's not cleaning toilets. He's lifting his own spirit, but also the spirits of other people. But he's not probably, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking, but the experience of that, like lightness and
Hmm.
fun and change of feeling is like, why do people go to concerts? Why do they appreciate art? Why do they go hiking in nature? Why do they make crude jokes at a coffee machine? Like, it's because it's such a natural part of being human, this kind of lightness. And even one of the things, I don't know if you see this, but I worked with a lot of people who are from the services, you know, from
Hmm.
the RAF or whatever. And there's this kind of like, the worse the circumstances, the more a sense of humor comes out, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There is a particular military dark humour. I think probably runs through the police and various other things as well. But and very much so from our part of the, from Britain and Ireland, and uh, it's there in America as well, but it's slightly more tame. It's probably the best way. They look at us and go, "You said what?" um, but yeah, there is a sort of yeah, right, sod it. Let's just pull our socks up, and get on with this, and see how much fun we can have in the process, because it's either that or cry, and let's see where we go.
And it's I think there's a metaphor in this, you know, like for life that, you know, there's always going to be trying circumstances. There's always going to be difficulties. And within those, if you have a little glimpse of a lifting of spirits or a smile or a sense of humor or a sonnet where it's like, yeah, well, you know, it is what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, then you're not so much a prisoner of the circumstances and you're not a prisoner of your thinking about the circumstances. And that shift of feeling, um, and the shift of seeing that goes along with that brings new possibilities into play. And it's
Absolutely.
so simple and so uh, undervalued in the culture of education, the culture of the world now that we're starting to see it in the Western world more. It was probably more prevalent in the Eastern world, this kind of, you know, uh, a window into something beyond the current circumstances
Mm-hmm.
that has hope or joy or humor attached to it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember from my days after the army doing sort of corporate type stuff, and there was some really complicated stuff that we were doing, which is fine. But people would think, all right, this is a complicated problem. It needs a complicated solution. Go beavering off to, no, that's not complicated enough. Surely we want it to be as simple as possible, so that we can break it down and step through it. But no, that's not complicated enough. It needs to be more complicated. And everyone sort of rolling their eyes and getting a little bit caught up in it all. But like anything, things feel complicated until they don't. And at the point that they don't, they become simple. And it's not
Yeah.
because they've changed. It's just our understanding's changed in them. My my eldest has just moved on beyond my mathematical ability. She stepped out of my comfort zone on that front, and she goes, "I've been doing this equation over and over and over, and I just, this bit works, that bit works, this bit works. This last one just always goes horribly wrong." I said, "Okay, well, I don't understand. So could you walk me through how this process works, please? And to start off with, she was just rattling through it and it ended up failing it. And so then she went, right, okay, let's start from the beginning again. And we're going to highlight everything that we like as the right answer. Okay, cool, happy with that. And she went through the process. And because she had slowed down, all of a sudden she went, oh, that I haven't seen that before. And that looks right. And that was it. Boom. Everything is, she'd gone from, no, this should just work to, oh, right, there's something here that's not working, slowed herself down by having to bring Dad along, by his, dragging him along. It felt like my brain was seeping out of my ear, but there we go. She was able to explain it to me in a way that was simple enough for me to get it. At that point, her understanding of the problem shifted and the solution became apparent. All right, well, thanks very much, Dad. Off you go. Got this now. And I think that's so wonderful because it was complicated because she didn't see the solution. And when it became clear to her, done, thanks, we're off and flying. And we make too much of that transition point when actually it's just a shift in insight, a bit of understanding that shows up for us and opens a whole load of doors again. And I find that endlessly fascinating. It's really, really quite cool.
And that's another beautiful metaphor for coaching, right? So if we rephrase that as a coaching conversation, you knew nothing. The only thing you did was suggest that they slow down. She had the answer for herself, and the application of the answer for herself was self-evident to her.
Yeah.
And that was like, and there's no effort in it.
Yeah.
And it's just in the seeing of it. And the feeling of confidence that she would have got out of the uncovering that for herself, it just shows how beautifully designed human beings are.
Yeah.
And how wise, there's a lot of wisdom in you. Been honest, I don't know, because a lot of us would pretend I know, and then we'd try and explain to the point of where our understanding falls over, and then they'd get even more confused, and then they'd ask us questions that would make us even more confused, and it just and it's a very inefficient kind of process, and then the frustration kicks in. You're always doing this to me, Dad. No, you're supposed, so then you get all this kind of bad feeling, and it's we don't see the creative process at work, how simple it is, and the willingness to not know, the trust that the capacity to see is already there, and that people will see it. There's so much power in that. And I think for me, is like what I've seen is that I was the guy who knew.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of pressure on to know, so like, or to at least have a credible opinion. So I'd look credible and people would take me seriously. But actually, there's very little power in what you know. There's much more power in seeing that people, once they slow down and have insight, that capacity works so brilliantly and so much better than any kind of form you could create or form that you learned in the past that you try and apply now. It's so simple, but it's what's in the way is our own sense of self-importance, our own feeling that we need to know the power dynamic, that I'm the important adult in the conversation and I should know. And when you strip all that back, we're back to what we were saying before, is service. Is like when you are there for the other person or with the other person and you see that they know, sometimes that's enough. Saying anything is kind of a pointless exercise.
Yeah. Just being with someone and helping them realize that they are absolutely everything that they need already. They might not believe that to start with, but the confidence and this assertion from us that you've got this. We might not be able to see the solution at the moment, but we'll get there. Absolutely, we will. I don't quite know how we're going to do it either, but isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Let's be Christopher Columbus today. Which way are we going? We're going we're going west. Brilliant. What are we going to find? Have no idea. Hopefully India. Um, you know, there was some intention there. He didn't hit what he was looking for, but he found something equally exciting, if not more so. Because and that's fascinating. That human spirit for exploration, and looking at what is unknown for us individually, is a really, really exciting part of us. And it feels very, very different from the, oh my God, I'm missing this one little thing that I've got to try and hunt down and chase, and okay, I'm missing something. Brilliant. Or I feel like I am. There's a whole world out there filled with other people that have probably been there too, probably seen it before, and can be of some service or support to us along the way. And when we were speaking last week, I mentioned that the sort of the motto of Scientist is serve to lead. It's something that all officers in the British Army are brought up understanding at some level or not. It's something that really struck me at the time. But actually, it runs through the whole of the forces, wherever you are in the world. We all individually have a role to play, but our role is part of a team, and it's service to that team, because the strength of us individually is minuscule. Our strength is magnified by our collective ability. And therefore, if we're looking out for each other, being there for each other, we're likely to be stronger as a result, which I sort of took for granted when I went out into the big wide world and found that actually quite a lot of people were, for fear or whatever reason, fighting their own corner and potentially setting people up for failure because that helped them look better. I thought, aren't we as a business trying to achieve this goal? And if that's the goal that we're all collectively on, why aren't we working together? It was a bit of a clash at times in terms of my understanding of how the world worked, having only ever been in a world that seemed to be, in the main, collegiate and working towards a central direction. But it's what excites me about this understanding and looking at our ability to see clearly in any moment, even when we're not feeling it. That I know certainly that the veterans of this world catch on to quite quickly, because it's something that's familiar to them. They've been there before, in whatever guise that looks like, and it's just potentially finding something in their story that it rings true for them, that goes, oh yeah, no, I've been here before. Yeah, that makes sense. And off we go. We're back into curiosity, back into a whole world of possibilities rather than doom and gloom.
And what is really interesting is that the tribe of humanity versus my own self-interest, or my mini tribe self-interest, my silo in my organization, or my officer class versus the ordinary soldier.
Yep.
Like there's that. The more we create these differences, the more we create arguments about the differences,
100%.
and we create justifications about the arguments. and then we're off into complexity again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like these people are completely inadequate, and here's my rationale for it. And I'm right, and I'm very important because I'm right, and I'm very justified in being angry that they're wrong. And we don't see the creative process of that. We don't see that. Whereas when like I saw this guy, this is kind of, there's always sitting behind it is our common humanity and this curiosity. I saw this guy, an American kid, had learned how to say one phrase in the Maasai language. And he went to Kenya, and his one phrase was like, he turned up as a tourist, and all the Maasai tribe were hanging out basically, like all the guys, and
Hmm.
he basically said, I would love to have a Maasai wife in the Maasai language. And all the lads just started laughing. And straight away they were like, wow, where did you learn this? And he was like, well, I was in America and I tried to figure out. So I found a friend in Kenya who could teach me this. And straight away they were like, oh, the Maasai tribe were amazingly welcome. They're like, you're welcome anywhere the Maasai are. You are now one of us, you know,
Yeah.
and this is this possibility of us, creating differently, creating
Mm.
a more, our collective power is enormous. And this understanding is a brilliant leveler because before the forms of culture and the forms of hierarchical systems or the forms of business or the forms of money, there's where does the creation of form come from?
Hmm.
And how does that actually work moment to moment? And the seeing of that. And once you cease to take the forms as seriously, because you see there's a creative aspect to it, there's a connection, a common
Yeah.
humanity, and the possibility to create something new and better is already there. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
we just get in the way of it, but it's already there. And
Yeah.
once you see, oh, right, I'm thinking I know when I couldn't really know, it's better to ask
Mm.
and then see what happens.
Yeah. No, that's lovely. The silos bit you were talking about is part of the certainly part of the problem that I'm seeing from a veteran world is they see themselves as different, and society potentially sees them as different, and therefore it's a self-perpetuating problem. Um, it's it's a slightly unfair thing to burst the bubble and say you're actually the same as everybody else. That doesn't help. But realizing that you aren't different from anybody else. You've got some different experiences. You've worn some different outfits. You've been to some different places. But actually, your working parts are the same. You operate the same way. Nothing's changed on that front. Um, that can be alarming for some because they've been hanging on to an identity for such a long period of time that they think that's who they are. That can be, yeah, that can be unsettling, but equally it can be a huge relief. I go, okay, oh well, I'm not just reliant on people that I've served with, or people that have served, or organisations that are linked to it. Actually, the world is my oyster now. Anybody is open for connection, and we can see that. The business of language is a funny one because there are some universal bits which is just we can see in each other who is alive and alight and just full of love and compassion, and who is shut down and closed off and feeling upset, or within holding themselves within. And we don't need to be able to speak the same language to see that, and we don't
Yeah.
need to be able to reach across and be of service to each other by having the same language. We can just be each other, be there for each other, and see what shows up as a result. And it's normally fear that keeps us from doing so.
Yeah. Which manifests as judgment.
Mm.
It's like I think in the military, in leadership, they say to decide is to divide. And the feeling of judging somebody else as they don't know what they're talking about, or they're different from me. Nobody likes to feel judged, and yet humanity is like Mark Twain said, comparison's the thief of joy. So we're going around the place kind of judging, they're a veteran, they're probably a warmonger. We wouldn't get on. Or those civilians, they have no idea what I've been through in my experience. Um, and everybody does it, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
my teenager goes, "You don't know what it's like to be a teenager nowadays, Dad." And he's right. And I said, "Well, you don't know what I've experienced in the world, so you haven't really asked." And I'm right. and we can all be right
Hmm.
all the time and
Yeah.
use our rightness to judge, which is a fear of kind of and not realize that we're doing it, which is why the understanding of the principles is so helpful because our feelings give us feedback to
Hmm.
say when we're judging.
Hmm.
And when we're judging, we're usually separating ourselves, defining ourselves as different from somebody else, and building a little castle around ourselves, a
Yeah.
little kind of a protection. I'm not like you. Whereas I love what you said about aliveness, is that what are we bringing alive in the conversation right now? What are we bringing alive in my life? What am I bringing
Hmm.
alive with these other people? And you can tell, you go into some meetings and it's dead.
Yeah.
You know, if it looks dead and it smells dead, it's because it's dead. There's somebody standing there, they have a PowerPoint presentation, there is some talking taking place, but you have people kind of in a semi stupor, off on the mental internet somewhere, wondering what they're having for lunch, and others staring out the window, and there's no joy, there's no aliveness, there's no connection, there's no love, there's no hope, there's no spirit of collaboration. And then others, you look at it and you go, wow, And I had a couple of conversations with rugby players because I used to play rugby
Hmm.
quite a bit, and it's like team spirit. There's some days when you're going to go out and play, you're going to throw yourself at the feet of somebody who's 20 stone and running like really, really fast. And it's like, it's physical commitment,
Hmm.
probably, to a lesser extent than what the services would have, but is that you don't do that unless you have some spirit to do it.
Hmm.
You know, Rationality would say, don't do that. That doesn't make any sense. But to do it and to enjoy it and to do it with other people and to
Yeah.
feel the total commitment to that and the joy of that connection is like,
Hmm.
is so powerful. And I think it's something probably people with a background like yours, can bring to the world because for you, that's kind of, yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah. That's
You,
that's
you,
that's how it's going to work.
this is how it works. You get a group of people together, you get that feeling right, you get that commitment level right, you get the clarity right, and it's incredible what people can
Hmm.
produce. And there's an aliveness to it. It's so you're bringing it to life. And if you look around, you're going, where am I going to find that? Like, and in a lot of the organizations in the civilian world, people don't get it in the organization. They get it when they coach soccer, or they get it
Hmm.
when they're a member of a choir, or they get it, but it's a natural human
Yeah.
thing to have team spirit, to feel this, bring alive a collective.
Absolutely. And it's it is available everywhere. We just have this sort of potential separate set of rules that the workplace is not where we find it. And constantly counting down to the end of the day or the end of the week or the next holiday. This is what I do to just exist and pay for life. It's part of life. The whole business of work-life balance for me is daft. We just have life, and work forms some of it.
Yeah.
And why would we do something that we absolutely detest? And there are times when we sort of need to. I don't like cleaning loos. Lavatory cleaning is not fun, but it's got to be done. Just roll your sleeves up and get on with it. There's a whole load of things like that. No, I just prefer not to do that. But if I think about it in those terms, I will worry about it or try and put it off, or it'll get in the way of other bits of my day, or I just roll my sleeves up and go, okay, fine, let's get it done. And once it's done, I can move on to something more exciting that I do enjoy doing. But actually, I've also ticked it off as a task. Unfortunately, there is a sort of understanding that life is a task, work is a task that needs to be endured. But we do it for decades. So why can't we enjoy it as well, whatever that happens to be?
And it's this kind of it's always now. This is
Mm.
one of the and my experience of my life is always now. regardless of what's appearing or disappearing in consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if there's the distinction between work and life is just thinking as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's that
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the simplicity of it is that whatever my level of understanding is right now is my experience of life
Mm-hmm.
right now, whether I'm cleaning toilets or like sipping pina coladas, on a beach somewhere. It's like it's all happening. My experiences in my reality is my experience of
Mm.
reality, and it's the simplicity of seeing that it's thought is that nobody gets a pass on cleaning the toilets, or doing things, but doing it with understanding and with uh, a realizing that it's all experience
Yeah.
means that there's a different creative possibility. So even in work, it's a human to human conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking to anybody, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what their role it is. And there's a real freedom in that,
Yeah.
and if you're not hung up on the self-importance of it, or the form that we create in our thinking that says, this isn't a conversation between me and Dave. This is a conversation between the head of finance and somebody who's looking to get finance off them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we can make that really complicated for ourselves
Yeah.
and really think about it and create all these kind of strategies and tactics. And there's Black Swan negotiation, there's the Harvard negotiation, there's like, what's his walkaway position? What's my walkaway position? And part of us loves the drama of it,
Uh-huh.
but we don't entertain the possibility that it's thinking that I'm having right now. And that in the same way as your daughter saw something when she slowed down doing a maths equation, that's possible in a conversation with
Mm.
somebody in work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not thinking of it as a work conversation, it's just well, if we slow down the two of us and our aliveness, it comes to life and we make something new alive in the conversation, then
Yeah.
maybe we get a completely different result. Or worst case scenario, we have a terrible result, but we can still be okay about it.
Yeah.
We can still like because we're not on the hook for the outcome with our ego. We're not identifying with the thinking about the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much potential in all interactions.
Mm.
And unfortunately, quite a lot of that potential is squashed by the thinking that people are having in that moment about what they think that outcome should be, who all of those things, rather than going, okay, well, I know my stuff. I've been sent to do this task. I know what I'm doing. I know they know what they're doing. Let's have a grown-up conversation about it, or even a childish one. Let's have a childish conversation. Let's have fun. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah, and even to see the innocence of everybody taking it seriously,
Yeah,
and been stuck, like because it's the judging thing again. I'll judge myself really badly if I fail at this.
mm-hmm.
And so it's innocent. People defend themselves. Everybody defends themselves in conversations. But what's magic about understanding that it's thought and that feeling is coming from thinking as opposed to from the other party
Mm-hmm.
is that when you see somebody else is in a bad place, you don't take it personally and get into a bad place yourself and think, well, they don't really like me very much. And really what they're kind of going is, I'm really worried I'll make a bad decision here.
Mm-hmm.
But then there has to be a sort of an integrity or an honesty or a humility to create trust.
Yep.
And a genuine, like I even hear it in some of the military kind of podcasts on leadership is like, detach and be humble and listen and willing to change. Like that's good advice. It's very practical advice. It's just doing it at a level of form.
Yeah. I've
you
got to
know,
create the conditions for this.
right. Is
Yeah.
we have to win hearts and minds. Let's win them over. Once they're feeling good about it, then their mind will follow, kind of thing. And that's good advice. That's an understanding. The principles is another level of understanding before that kind
Mhm.
of form created, but it's everywhere. You
Yeah.
know, this the like and it's so common sense and so obvious that we put very little value on it sometimes.
Yeah, because the vast majority of everything is wrapped around the form of it.
Right.
People chasing the thing rather than realizing that what they're experiencing is all they are ever going to have in terms of feeling moment to moment, and the simplicity of that.
Hmm.
Going full circle back to the complexity. Complexity is just letting us know that we're missing it at the moment. We're forgetting who we are, and that life is way simpler than we are imagining right now. Because all I have is this moment, and in this moment, there are only so many things that I can or can't be doing. Um, it's just the majority of my time is spent up thinking about things that are beyond my control, beyond this moment in time, either in the past or way off in the future, and subtly or not so subtly inviting us back to now to get on with the business of cleaning the loo. Um,
Yeah. And it's the seeing of that for yourself,
hmm,
for ourselves, because sometimes we see it and sometimes we don't. And everybody's like this. It's
yeah.
nobody sees it more than anybody else, is that everybody kind of freaks themselves out about, I missed my target. I'm now not going to be getting my bonus, which means my wife is going to leave me. I won't be able to pay my kids' school fees. I'm going to head for a divorce. I'll probably be a homeless alcoholic. Like we create all these kind of imaginary futures right now with our
Mhm,
thinking,
mhm,
and we don't see that we're doing that. And then we wrestle with it and we go, okay, in order to not for that not to happen, I got to get motivated and I got to work harder for the outcome. So then I'm into the world of negotiation and strategies and tactics, which is even more form. It's like, how do I make sure that I win this negotiation to get that whatever over the line with the finance
mm,
guy um and it's an innocent misuse of our thinking. We use our thinking to create form, and like when we're afraid, we create all this form in the future, what if stuff, and then we don't see we're doing it. And then we create more thinking to try and fix it now, and we end up burnt out and tired and resilient, and then we kind of fall asleep and we wake up and we kind of go, Jesus, I don't know what happened to me there. You know, like it's a I that seemed a lot more complicated yesterday, but since I had a sleep on it,
mm.
my friend Jeff, I have a friend in Galway, Jeff Canavan, and he told me once years ago, the minute you see complexity, you're looking into your own fear. And I was like, what does he mean? Like, I don't get that because he was seeing it and I wasn't seeing it. But then I started to see it. I'd be asked to run a project somewhere which would have very vague kind of guidelines, and a lot of expectations. And then I'd imagine what those expectations were and imagine limits on the guidelines, thinking I'm going to fail, I'm going to screw this up really badly, and and then I'm a homeless person. Like I'd have so much thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then I realized actually I'm just afraid. It's the unknown and I don't know what it is. And innocently to try and control it, the fear is to put some structures in place to reassure me that it was going to be okay.
Mhm.
But it wasn't really about solving the problem. It was more about reassuring me that it would be okay.
Yeah.
you know, but when I see that, like, uh, when I realize that it's complex It's not because it necessarily is complex, it's because I've a lot of form that I've created in my thinking that makes it look very complex.
Hmm.
And this is my innocent attempt to control it, to predict it, to get it right so
Hmm.
that I don't fail.
Hmm.
And then you're back into, oh, well, that's a lot of extra thinking,
Mm.
as opposed, and then you can go, well, what would be the common sense things that would, actually potentially work, that would mitigate risk exposure, that would, if I don't know people's expectations, maybe I should just ask them, so what are your expectations? It's so
Yeah.
common sense
Yeah.
then to go and do the things like well, how could I possibly know what their expectations
Hmm.
are unless I go and ask them?
Yeah.
But it never occurred to me when I was kind of scared. I would like, now they probably want this, this, and they probably want this, this, and this. Now, those two people, they don't really get on. So who's more important? We're masters at creating complexity through form as a way of reassuring ourselves. And well, at least I am. I can't speak for anybody else's experience, but what I noticed was, it took me 3 master's degrees to realize that this is my way of trying to reassure myself against
Hmm.
the unknown, was to have an intellectual understanding of what might happen. But then when I saw, okay, that's me using my thinking, my mind to reassure myself about the unknown, then it became very simple to go, do you know what? It's common sense to go, okay, that's going to happen sometimes. But then I'll just catch myself sooner. I won't,
Mm.
and then I'll ask, so what are your expectations here in the first conversation,
Yeah.
rather than 7 conversations down the line?
Yeah.
And it just makes for a far more efficient way of working,
Hmm.
which is also a more satisfying way of living. And we're back to that experience thing again, that there's not a difference in between work or life. It's you're when you understand your own experience, or you see it in the moment, that's transferable to every situation in life.
Yeah. No, so true. It just reminded me of uh, a wonderful acronym that the army loves acronyms. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. You know, if you don't know, ask questions. Especially while people are there. And if you can't, make some assumptions and ask them as soon as you can.
Yeah.
you know, and say, well, I've done this based on the following assumptions because I couldn't ask you any questions. Do they stand true? And if not, boom, right, we'll start again. Yeah, no, yeah, it's amazing how we can tie ourselves in knots innocently, um, about all manner of things, and it all comes back to the same. It all comes back to a lack of understanding in how experience is created moment to moment, um, every time, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what people are doing in life, where they are in the world, how well connected they are, how desolate their circumstances might be. It's all of that stuff bizarrely is irrelevant because experience is created moment to moment by thought. That's it.
Totally.
And being able to catch that and realize that when we get caught up is such a gift, and is available to every single one of us. And it tends to start with a simple realization, which brings a smile to our face, and comes back to that business of fun and curiosity. Sort of goes full circle every time. Um, and I love the simplicity of it because we are simple things at the end of the day. We wouldn't have been around for that. Well, depending on how far you want to take our ancestry back, um,
Yeah.
a long, 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 long time. Um,
That we're ordinary miracles.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's so
That's so cool.
You know, it's so ordinary, but like then it's so amazing that we have such infinite creative power and potential, um, that we're already using all the time. So we're creating realities with our thinking, moment to moment, always.
Mm.
It's always a creative process, and that it's so powerful, we don't see that we're doing it. And everybody's doing it all
Yeah.
the time. It's which is, but we just end up arguing about the forms. You know, like I'm an Irish man, you're an English man, therefore we have lots of thinking about, like what that means.
Yeah.
And we don't see that I'm creating my Irishness with my thinking, and I'm creating a distinction or a difference with you, and you might be doing the same. But that never even enters your head or my head, I'm sure. It's like, because we look at it and go, I'm creating my experience moment
Mm.
by moment. You're creating your experience moment by moment. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And everybody is. And the like when I work with groups that I have a program that I run, which is all on this. People from all over the world, every kind of background you can imagine, from Asia to the Middle East to Latin America to, everywhere. And everybody goes, yeah, that's just actually true.
Yeah.
First they get stumped and they go, you know, and I know Win Morgan.
Mhm.
Win has a phrase is like, is this just a good idea, or do you think it could be possibly true? You
Yeah.
know, and the more you look, is it true? The more evidence you find that it's true,
Mhm.
at least in my experience.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that it's the something else better mightn't come along, but for me, it's kind of the evidence before the form of culture, before the form of job roles, before the form of, you know, uh, educational background, gender, anything. It's true that human beings create their experience from the inside out
Mhm.
and moment to moment, and it's an ordinary miracle. It's just amazing.
Darragh, that's been amazing. I think that's a wonderful place to leave it. I don't know if there's any projects or things that you've got going on at the moment you'd might like to tell people about. Doesn't matter if there aren't, but if you do have things going on, please feel free to share.
Well, I'm in ongoing research on a book about wisdom and being, which is basically the principles,
Mhm.
non-dual kind of teachings, and ordinary practicality. Because sometimes these things get very out of place, and there's an element of creativity and aliveness in it. So I'm always interested in conversations with people who are, looking in this direction and exploring, like you said about Christopher Columbus. It's like,
Mm.
I'm just heading in a direction
Let's
and
see what
see
shows
it,
up.
see what comes. And also I love helping. So, and I'm very lucky that I have people that I work with doing this kind of stuff. But I really appreciate the invitation to be on, Dave, and wish you best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure we'll be speaking again. Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.